I read an article one time, I don't know if this is true, but that people can't actually say what hypnosis is because it's not asleep. I think there's 9 stages before you fall asleep, maybe 8,
Wow,
something
okay,
like
that's
that.
a lot.
Somnambulous, SOMNAMBULUS, I think is how you say it.
Right.
Is I think where you go into hypnosis. So it's right before you're asleep. So you're like very, very vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever is like supposed to be planted in your mind is
Yeah.
supposed to take.
Yeah.
You know, because you said when was the last time you did hypnosis? Well, first off, do you want to read the definition of it?
Yes, that is what I am
Is
doing.
it Wikipedia?
I don't even know what this is. This is mayoclinic.org.
Mayo Clinic. That's
yeah,
a good one.
You're like Mayo. Hypnosis is a changed state of awareness and increased relaxation that allows for improved focus and concentration. It is also called hypnotherapy. Hypnosis usually is done with the guidance of a healthcare provider using verbal repetition and mental images. During hypnosis, most people feel calm and relaxed.
So witchcraft.
Yeah, I mean, I guess,
I'm just joking.
I
mean, I'm not.
I don't even know
but
what
I'm
witchcraft
not, but
is, so I don't.
I don't either. Well, there's different definitions, I guess, but I don't do it anymore because I would put it in that.
You did witchcraft?
No.
Oh,
I never
okay.
did witchcraft. I just start
Okay.
floating. And I'm like,
What of it? I was like, whoa.
Yeah, I sit on air for the entire remaining of the podcast. No, I never did, but I put it in the metaphysical category. When I was doing it, I wasn't trying to do anything supernatural. I did it for 4 years.
Okay.
And all I was trying to do was reprogram my mind.
Right,
You know?
of course.
But you do it.
I did it very.
You did it.
I did it with this woman who was training to become a hypnotherapist, and she was trying to get her hours in. So she was doing like kind of free sessions.
Was she
$20
good?
Sessions. I think so.
She wasn't like in training like somebody with a scalpel. Like, oh, well,
I haven't. I've only done it with
Yeah,
her, so I
with her.
wouldn't know
Gotcha.
any better. But I think I did it very kind of like superficially. I did it for like I did one session for my indecisiveness. Like I will make decisions,
Yeah.
instead of, and
Yeah.
it worked. Like she got me really in a hypnosis state, and I really worked hard to have the visuals, and she'd be like, oh, when you're in the hypnosis state, you'll feel like some tingling in your arm, but I got that, but I had a pinched nerve. Turns out,
So it was just like a Mack truck that hit you.
I just had a pinched nerve, so
And
I
she was
got
like,
the
I'm
tingling
killing it.
anyway. I was like, sure, and then I did it again for just random, like depression stuff. Like, oh, I deserve to be happy. But the thing that was great about it is she gave me a recording of her doing the hypnosis. Maybe I'll try it again. But I would put this thing on at night and just fall asleep like in a second.
Like it was
in
quick.
a second.
Yeah.
I would sometimes make it halfway through. I wouldn't even get to the part where I'm doing the thing. I would just fall asleep. And I was just using it for that
To
for
sleep.
like months. And then eventually it just stopped working. I was awake the whole time and I kind of stopped doing it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple, because I read a bunch of books, and so the first guy, if you don't mind me giving a little history lesson.
Of course,
The first guy who did really like popularized hypnosis was this dude named Milton Erickson. And so I was reading his book. So what he would do is he would hypnotize people and they wouldn't even know he was hypnotizing them. He was a therapist. But what he would do is, so you're sitting like that, right? So
Yeah.
if I clasp my fingers together and then I started mirroring your movements and your eye movements and everything else, you would start to get hypnotized, according to him. I've never done this on a person because that'd be like really manipulative and weird.
Right.
But I remember when I went to a hypnotherapist, I used to sit cross-legged a lot, and I would hunch over and I would clasp my hands like this.
Yeah.
And I was looking over at the hypnotherapist, and he was doing that as he was talking to me, and I felt very comfortable. We hadn't gone into the hypnosis yet, but I was like, oh, I know what he's doing. He's mirroring me, because I already knew about that whole thing. Like, that's what you're supposed to do with, like, hypnosis to get somebody's rapport. So he popularized it. And then beforehand, I think it was called animal magnetism. And it was originally something that was kind of supernatural, like more woo-woo.
Right.
And then the psychology world got a hold of it, and then they kind of repackaged it. Kind of like, you know how yoga is like a spiritual practice, but then like the West kind of
But
took
now
it.
it's like power yoga, get abs.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
why I've heard a lot of yogis hate Bikram,
Right.
because Bikram, or however you say his name, like basically sort of made like McDonald's drive-through yoga, like
Well,
to
he
where it's,
stole his
you
practice
know,
from somebody else and claimed he invented it. And
uh-huh,
apparently it's good. I've done it a few times, but some
sure.
people have like, dedicated their whole lives to that practice, but it's not his.
It's
He's
not
kind
his,
of
yeah.
like
So
he
he
tried
just
to
kind of
sort of be
stole it.
the fame because he was on TV, he was
Uh-huh.
on talk shows, all the celebrities were doing it. So then he ended up being like a serial rapist.
Yeah, yeah. I saw the documentary on Netflix. It was like,
So,
it was crazy. It was like, who would have saw that coming? And he was like, he would be like posing in front of his Cadillac with like shades on.
yeah, yeah.
What was so funny about him was he would be like doing like the rapper thing, but his hairline was all the way like back
Yeah.
here,
He was
to where
definitely
it
a
just
very
looked.
unique looking guy.
He was a weird guy, but I'm
Yeah.
still sure, like, there were some women that were like, "Oh my gosh, he's hot."
Oh,
Because
for sure,
he probably
100%.
exuded
Well, he's like
something,
confident. He had
power.
money. He was a good body, and I'm sure there's
Yeah.
some women that wanted to fuck him.
I'm
you
sure,
know?
yeah, Bikram probably definitely had women. But
But maybe he didn't
anyways,
want those.
the hypnosis was kind of like, was sort of like that, I think, to where it was like, I don't really, I haven't studied the where it goes back to animal magnetism, but it's somewhere along that. So when I started doing it, I was trying to hypnotize myself for everything.
Yeah.
I was making recordings, and it'd be things like "Women love you," and it'd be like that.
Right.
And then like whenever I'd go on stage, it'd be like, "You attack the stage like a bear."
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I was trying to not almost like not be human, because I think I had so much rejection in my early life
Yeah.
that I was trying to like short circuit any kind of rejection, because I'm like looking at people like Tony Robbins, and I'm like, okay, how do I get that confident all the time?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Which is probably impossible. I don't think even he's
You have to be a sociopath,
as that
you know,
confident all
or
the time.
Elon Musk, like a robot, you know?
Right.
But you can't be that way all the time, you know. So I was doing everything, and I was mostly listening to recordings when I was doing it, but I did go to a hypnotherapist too, you know. So I only went to one. Actually,
Okay,
in
one for the
office.
whole 4 years?
I actually two. I did one on the phone,
Mm-hmm.
and then I did the first one.
I've never done a live session because the one I did with that woman was on Zoom.
Okay.
So which I'm sure is probably very different than actually
I feel like
being
that's
in the room.
everything now, though.
I know, it sucks.
You know, like everything
It
is like
sucks.
Zoom. Like acting classes on Zoom. I'm
Yeah,
like,
well,
no,
they're doing like
I would never do that.
UCB was doing improv classes on Zoom. How are you doing?
They continue to make me angrier and angrier.
Yeah.
The more things I hear about UCB these days, the more I'm like, I like rolling my eyes.
Yeah,
It's like it's like when I think of UCB, I think of like kids that have like a stupid haircut that like shave off their whole head and they leave like the Michael Jackson strand or something.
well, my
dumb.
wife, like she like sprained her ankle really bad. She had to go to physical therapy, but the physical therapy was on Zoom. So the guy's just giving her exercise, and her ankle was never getting better. It was a year later, and then finally she was able to go in.
That's
She
like
sees
so
the-
unprofessional. It's like, can you move the
Yeah.
Mountain Dew can?
She
Like,
sees
out
the
of-
guy, and he goes like, "Oh, I never saw this. Okay," and he just kind of fixed it, and it was kind of fine. I was like, so that was just like a waste of. You can't use Zoom for everything.
Well,
you know?
everyone was trying to keep their jobs.
Yeah.
It was weird because like when the pandemic happened, everybody magically became a con artist overnight to where they're like, we can still do stand up comedy. We'll do it on Zoom. It's like,
Yeah.
I can still do therapy. I'll do it on Zoom. It's
Yeah.
like, I had a joke for a while. I was like my therapist, because she's like, how are you doing, man? I'm like, the same as you. It's like we're both wearing our pajamas at 4.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like talking.
Yeah,
to
that's
each
like I
other
have so many
over, like,
clothes I'm
Zoom.
not wearing anymore.
I
know?
picked up bad habits in the pandemic. One of them being where I started wearing the same thing every day, like Bart Simpson.
Yeah.
Because it was just like, we kind of stopped going out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if you feel like you go out a lot less since the pandemic.
Yeah, well, because there's
You
some
know?
things that are staying. Like now, there's some things even I would prefer. Like, I actually kind of do prefer just pick up my food, eat it at home, than eat at a restaurant. Like that kind of stayed.
Uh-huh.
I know a lot of people have that for like they don't want to go see movies anymore. I go to the movie theater, there's like
Yeah.
nobody there. You know,
I love the
so-
movies.
Me too.
So,
I
you
have
know.
the A-list. I'll go. You know, I'll try to
totally.
go at least a few times a month
Yeah.
to make it worth it. But yeah, some people stay like that. I remember my agent, my reps would tell me, because I was auditioning for this huge kind of like Broadway level play, and I got to like the last round, and my manager was like, these things used to be exciting because a lot of producers and casting would go, but now they don't go anywhere since the pandemic. Like now we kind of ask, like, is there a link they can just watch it at home? was like, yeah, but you're not getting anything from watching a Broadway play at home.
Well, when I did the one man show,
Mm-hmm.
I did it. It was 20. Yeah, it was this year. It's 2022. It was like just
Yeah.
like 6 months ago, 5 months ago, or whatever.
Yeah.
But whenever I did it, I remember the guy told me that the only thing that was like selling tickets really was comedy.
Huh.
He was
Really?
like,
Okay.
yeah, he goes, people are still going to see. Because I think stand up, I kind of feel like people will always go see stand up.
I don't know,
I
but I
hope.
mean,
I
there
hope it
is
doesn't.
less shows now because I know the clubs used to do shows all the way until like 2, 3 in the morning. They're not, except for the store, they're not doing that anymore.
But I don't think it's going to go anywhere. Like live stand
Right?
up.
No. It'll always be there, staying. But
I mean, it might be in the
is,
metaverse,
but it is less people going to it
Yeah.
compared to before the pandemic.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And so it's like this weird phenomenon. So people's like, people are inside more.
Yeah.
But
Basically.
yeah, I'm not a fan of the whole like Zoom thing. I mean, for
No.
doctors' visits, like if it's just your primary care doctor, because a lot of times primary care doesn't even know what he's talking about. He's just like, he's like, how's your blood pressure? Like he just prescribes.
Well, you
medicines.
need them to take the TED, like your.
Yeah.
So you that
Totally. I
can't
can't
be
tell
on
him be like
Zoom.
good. So for
Yeah.
that, yeah, like in the other things too,
Yeah.
It was weird last time because my primary care, I have Medi-Cal.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like all Medi-Cal offices are like in like a
Torrance.
sewer. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
Splinter is
It's
like the
far,
receptionist. It's like just
Dude, I used to
ugh.
go to when I was on Medi-Cal, I would go see a doctor in Torrance. He'd do a bunch of tests, and I would just never get my results.
Well, dude, some of these kids are in college. So I got a physical.
Yeah.
And it was this guy, he goes
Like a
he goes,
17-year-old.
yeah, it was weird.
Yeah.
Because it was like this guy, he's probably like 20, and he goes, Can you pull down your pants? And I'm like, sure. And he goes, is it okay if she's in here? And so he's like cupping me, and this girl is just like looking over, like,
Yeah.
and she has like her clipboard and stuff. It was like really
And
weird.
she's like drawing your penis.
Yeah,
It's an art student.
it was like weird. Yeah, it's like, yeah, she goes to UCLA.
Yeah,
she has
yeah,
to do
yeah.
like a still life.
Yeah.
And it's like, or not a still life.
We're collaborating.
Yeah, it's like we're both like, we're dating.
Yeah.
She's she's my girlfriend. She needs to get this done by tomorrow. But yeah, like I'm not a fan of like going in and stuff. But I never did hypnosis over Zoom. I did it in person.
Did it in person. And you
And
did the
I
whole
did the
4 years
recordings.
with the same person.
No. So first, what I started doing was I started doing Paul McKenna.
Okay.
He was this guy who he hypnotized Russell Brand and a bunch of different celebrities and
Okay.
stuff like that. And I did his recordings. I didn't go to him
I
live.
see. Okay.
And the first thing that got me hooked to hypnosis was I had a lot of issues with confrontation. I don't anymore, but that's because life has forced me to be more confrontational. But
Yeah.
like at the time, I was living in Chicago and I did this hypnosis session. And what was crazy was they do the countdown in hypnosis, like you're relaxing. Well, when I completely went to relaxation, I like zonked out, and I like when he's like 1, when you wake up, I like woke up, and I was like,
Wow.
that's crazy. I'm like very hypnotizable because I wanted to be, And then I
Yes.
remember there was noise going on upstairs. They were always partying. And I felt like this confidence, and I walked out and I walked upstairs. I go, hey, you need to be quiet because I'm trying to sleep. And I just said that, and I was like, whoa.
Wow.
Because
yeah.
I was never able to do that
Yeah.
before. I was never able to confront people like that. So I was like, this works. So at the time, I was doing comedy in Chicago, and I had to drink a lot before I went on stage. So I would drink maybe like 4 or 5 beers, but like I wasn't able to really be funny because like, I don't know if you ever drank before going on stage, but I would always kind of feel like I'd feel my timing would be off. I just didn't care. I wasn't like sensitive to the
I don't
audience.
drink anymore, like at all.
I don't really
But the
either.
times that I did drink and go on stage was actually amazing.
Yeah,
I would go on
not
because
me.
he had so much confidence and so much like I would do a bunch of stuff I probably wouldn't do. But I also was aware, like, okay, this is a crutch. This could become a thing.
That's
where
why
it's
so
like
many
you'll
comics
need to, or
do that.
alcoholics. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a big reason why I'm pretty stone cold sober. When I first started doing stand up, I was smoking weed all the time.
Yeah.
And that doesn't really make you better. But I
Uh-huh.
even kind of stopped doing that because I just kind of want literally nothing as
Same.
much as possible.
Same.
You know?
I don't do anything.
Yeah.
So I remember I was doing that, so I replaced it with hypnosis. So I would literally be at shows, and and I'd be doing this around comics. They'd be like, "Where's Matt at?" And I'd be sitting under the table, and I'd have earbuds in. I'd be trying to hypnotize myself before I went on stage, even just at open mics and stuff. Like,
Wow.
I was, because I felt like I had found something that worked. But this was the caveat. It worked as long as I kept doing it. And hypnosis is very time
Yeah, it's like
consuming.
Rogaine.
Yes, it's like
Yeah.
Rogaine. You do it and you stop doing it, your hair falls out, but your
Yeah.
confidence just
Yeah.
it's like, why does that guy look so flaccid? It's like I haven't done hypnosis in a couple days.
Yeah, basically.
Your jawline just starts sagging
Yeah.
and you like lose your essence. But yeah, it was that. And so I was doing the recordings, and then I started doing the books, and then I started reading about hypnosis and like making my own hypnosis recordings to just get better on stage. And so I was doing that, and I was doing NLP, which is this thing Tony Robbins and a bunch of other people teach. And within 6 months, I had an agent, or not an agent, a manager, a big manager of moving to LA.
Yeah.
So within 6 months of doing this.
Yeah.
But what happened was it didn't, this is how I know I didn't
But
change
do you
my
think you
confidence.
wouldn't have gotten this manager if you didn't do the hypnosis? Because you still have to reach out and,
I
and
do.
find them.
I do. No. He found me. It was at the comedy store, and it was like quick.
Yeah.
Because I was doing really well on stage. But here was the thing. As soon as I started getting more opportunities in LA, I kept having to hypnotize myself
Yeah.
more and more and
Oh,
more.
God, yeah.
And
There's only so many hours in a
I would
day.
not feel confident. I would go in these offices, and there was like this undeservingness, no matter how many times
Of
I
course,
hypnotized myself
yeah.
to deserve it. And I'm like shaking because I've been in LA for 6 months. And I started to realize that hypnosis it works like alcohol, because you take the shot, whatever, and it works for maybe like 2 weeks at a time, at least
Right.
for me. And then you have to keep doing it. And you have to keep doing more.
How
You have to
much
keep coming
hypnosis?
back.
You're doing it every day?
I did it every day for about an hour and a half.
90
And so
minutes at once?
I
Or-
would work a telemarketing job, and then I would go and sit in my car, and I would recline back, and
Oh,
I would
man,
do
you would need hypnosis.
an
if you're
hour and
doing
a half to 2
telemarketing.
hours, of course. But this was even before that. In the summer
Yeah.
before I moved to LA, I did it. And so I would recline back and do that. And then I would like write some practice characters, go to open mic, and I would do that. But then like what happened was I had this manager that was like, I wanna pitch you to some people. So record a 30-minute set. So I rented out Matt Taylor. You know Matt Taylor,
Of course,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, he had this access to this weird, it's called like the Tree House or something. This was like 2010, 2011. So I rented this out, and I went to a hypnotherapist who was actually a comedian. And so I'm
Okay.
sitting here and I'm eating pizza, and he comes up to me, and as I'm eating pizza, he hands me a business card. He goes, "There are no accidents in life." And then he goes, "I do hypnosis." And then like,
Well, he didn't know that you were looking for...
no. And so I did that, and then I went to him.
Man, that's kind of creepy because he really said there's no accidents in life, and
Yeah,
that
he
is
said
like
something like
that's
that.
pretty bold. Maybe he's just doing that all the time, though.
He probably does it 300 times a day.
Yeah,
He's like,
yeah.
"There's no accidents." Like, everyone in LA is so quasi-spiritual that
yeah,
they're
you're
looking
right.
for
Yeah,
something.
Yeah.
So what ended up happening was I go to him as like a hypnotherapist, and he does a good job. Like I'm sitting in the chair though, and he puts on like this faint music after we start hypnotizing. I sign like it's not an NDA. It's like a non-disclosure agreement. Like, hey,
Well,
you're
it's
not gonna
kind of like if something bad happens to you.
Yeah, if
it's
you
not
jump out
my
a window,
fault.
don't-
Like,
you can't
if
sue
I
me.
do something bad to you, it's not my fault.
It's not my
Sign it.
fault.
Yeah.
Exactly. So what ends up happening is I sign this thing, whatever, and then as I'm in the chair and he hypnotizes me, he goes, "Nod your head if you agree." Hang on, let me silence my phone because it's
Oh, it's
driving me nuts.
about to alarm.
Yeah, no. Yeah, it's like alarm. It's like that's my old hypnosis alarm. It's like it's time to hypnotize yourself. So, anyways, he's like, "You're in your chair," and then he was like, "Nod if you are feeling relaxed." And I wasn't nodding my head. My head just started nodding involuntarily, and that's how like
He
I
was
was
like
like, "That's crazy."
Geppetto.
And he was like, "Good, good." And then like he was a normal. I mean, he does hypnosis, but he was a cool guy. So I go under, and he's like doing these different things. He goes, "I want you to imagine." And one of the things he said, because he's like, "Who are the comedians that you want to emulate?" I was like, "Jim Carrey." I go, "I want Dane Cook's confidence because he walks
Of
around
course,
the stage
yeah.
a lot." And then I was like, and then I want Steve Martin's silliness.
Mm-hmm.
And so each one of these comedians was giving me a vial that was like their secret. And I was like drinking it in the hypnotic thing. And so what he did was he gave me the recording. I did it. And then I did this for like 2 weeks before the show. I'm still getting on stage every night. And one thing he said to me was, he goes, "You don't have to always do all this stuff." He goes, "You got a great career ahead of you." That's like something this guy said to me. And he goes, just remember, he goes, every show, it's just another show. It doesn't matter who's there. And I get what he's saying now.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time I did this show that I did hypnosis for 2 weeks, and I just bombed my ass off. And like, I was so nervous. And I remember.
What do you mean, like the 30-minute thing with Matt
It was
Taylor?
a 30-minute thing, yeah.
Yeah.
That he had helped me like book or
Right.
whatever. And it was like a taping and all this stuff. And I packed it out. I had like 80 people in there.
And it just didn't go well.
It was partially the venue was kind of weird because the lights were like scorching bright
Yeah.
throughout the whole thing. So, but it was also too, I didn't know how to, as a comedian, you have to know how to be in the moment and address a situation and be like, yeah, this is weird. I just went into my thing because this manager's there and I wanted him to
Oh, the
like
manager
me so
was
bad.
there watching it?
He was there watching. So I did that. I bombed. He still wants to work with me because he's like, I believe in you and blah, blah, blah. But he's like, but yeah, he said very nicely that wasn't good. And so I like start doing hypnosis again. I'm doing more. I'm doing these different websites. There was a guy I found online in Murfrees, Murfrees, Borough, Tennessee.
Okay.
And he's a Christian hypnotherapist.
Okay.
And I'm a Christian.
Sure.
So I'm like, okay, I want this
This
guy.
is going to be the one.
This is going to be the one because
you had the
he's...
comedian, I'm a comedian, and the Christian,
Yeah,
I'm
the Christian.
It's like
I'm a
whatever
Christian.
connection.
Because I'm like, here's the thing. I never wanted to do spiritually. Like my conviction was always like, okay, I'm only going to open myself up to Jesus spiritually. So I'm like, I never tried to do anything spiritual in hypnosis. It was always psychological.
Right.
But with this person, I was like, okay, well, maybe I can make this kind of spiritual or whatever. And I can kind of, incorporate God into this or whatever. So I'm doing these hypnosis recordings. I'm doing them for like 4 months or something. And do you remember Lance Allen? He used to live out here.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a really funny comic. He's still doing it. He's
very
in
funny.
Chicago now.
Yeah.
He was living on my couch, and I got him to hypnotize himself. So he's hypnotizing himself on the couch, and I'm in the room hypnotizing myself.
Yeah.
And we're going to go out and do open mics. And I got other comics into it at the time. I think I hypnotized David Lucas and Stephen Briggs.
Right. At the same
And
time?
Not at the same time,
Okay.
no. I just like made them like a recording. Or
Right.
I made David a recording, and he was kind of like, eh. And then I made Stephen. I hypnotized Stephen. Like we were eating like flatbread and like dipping it in hummus. I was like, I know how to hypnotize people. And he's like, cool.
It's like, no way!
We're like in early 20s,
Yeah.
and Stephen's like so like
Into everything.
into everything. He's just like, yeah, go ahead. So I did, and he like said he felt that, and it was like just to help him or whatever. But so I do this hypnosis, and I'm like, I'm going to schedule an appointment with this guy. So when I do it, like I schedule the appointment, and we talk on the phone. He's in Tennessee.
Yeah.
And he goes, so there's this thing that I've noticed a lot of my clients have when they're under hypnosis. He goes, it's a dark cord, and the dark cord is attached to them when they make a promise. He goes, you know how Jesus in the Bible says, let your yes be a yes and your no be a no? He goes, anything beyond this comes from the evil one. He goes, it's because what you've done is you've made an unholy oath with another person. So he goes, have you ever broken up with a girl and you can't seem to leave the relationship behind? So what you do is you are always there for her because you promised you would always be there for her. Or there's like a friend that you know is not good for you, but you promised them something, and you feel like this codependent like
Obligation.
compulsion. He's like, that's usually a dark cord. So he goes, so whatever pops in your brain, I want you to say, I release the promise of, and this wasn't the hypnosis yet. So it's like, I release the promise of, da 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 da. I release the promise of, da 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 da. Even if it didn't make sense, I release the promise of, da 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 da. And we're doing this for like a few minutes. And then all of a sudden, I start to feel like this weird, like feeling in the room while I'm doing it. I'm like, something's like weird. Like, is like weird going on in the room. I've always been like very susceptible to like spirits and vibes and all that kind of stuff. Like feeling like when somebody has something weird around them or something. And so I felt that, and then I was like, it feels like icy hot. Like, you know, icy hot, the stuff that you rub
Yeah.
on your muscles. I go, it feels like that's going on inside of my muscles. And he goes, that's how it's supposed to feel.
Okay.
And then I'm like, okay, that's weird. It's like weird. So we keep doing that. And then like, I'm not someone who goes around, like I don't hear voices or whatever, but like if I were to ever say like I heard the voice of God, like I literally heard God speak in my brain. And it was like, the easiest way I can describe it is like, it was like clouds were like parting.
Simpsons.
And yeah, like Simpsons. It was like
Yeah,
the Simpsons,
yeah.
like, "Ah,"
Yeah.
and I couldn't think any of my own thoughts.
Huh.
So it's like a thought was planted in my mind, and I could like, it was like an echoey, almost like booming voice that was in your mind, but you knew you heard it. It was like unmistakable. And so one of the things like Christians do is like if somebody's claiming to operate like in a spiritual capacity and they're claiming to come in the name of like Jesus, you say, okay, is Jesus the way, the truth, the life, and the only way to the Father? And no man comes to him except through the Father.
Mm.
And then I said that to him because that's what I heard to ask him. And so I said that, and then the guy was like, "Why would you ask me that?"
The hypnosis guy.
He's like claiming to be a Christian.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Why would you ask me that?" He goes, "Whenever I'm doing hypnosis on people all the time," he goes, "demons are starting to come out of them and they shriek, and then I plead the blood of Jesus over them and it comes off." He's like, "But why would you ask me that?" And then
Maybe
I'm
because
like,
he got creeped out of the
maybe
question.
because you're putting the demons on people, dude. Like that's what I thought.
Right.
But he's like, I can't say that thing that you want me to say. And I go, why? Because you're saying you're a Christian. This is like central to being a Christian.
So at this time, when you're talking about this, are you in the hypnosis? Or are
no,
you
I'm
now
not,
you're
because
out
we
of
were
the
about to do the
hypnosis.
hypnosis. We're doing this weird spiritual exercise.
Okay.
So we do that, and then he was like, why would you? He's like, I can't say it. He goes, something is keeping me from saying it.
Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't like saying like something like my integrity is keeping me from saying it. The vibe that I got he was like
he just
something
is unable to
spiritual,
say it.
like he could not say it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I told him, I was like, hey man, I think I got to get off the phone. I was like, I'm going to pay you for your time, but I was like, I can't do this. And so after that, I was like, maybe I should set hypnosis down for a while.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to do it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But then like, my curiosity and my addictive behavior kicked back in.
Yeah.
I'm like, even after that weird experience, I'm going to try to do it again.
Of course, yeah. It's like drugs.
Yeah, it's like drugs,
Yeah.
like addiction, I think, is like where you just keep doing something despite consequences.
Yeah.
So I go to this like hypnosis site and I download this thing about like finding identity, because I've always felt like, not anymore, but at the time I always felt like a little shaky.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would always feel like kind of like nervous, and I'm like, what is this thing? I'm like, I need to be more grounded as a person. So I download this hypnosis session. I do it for like a few different times, and I think it was called Finding Identity. And I was in my car before I was going to do a set at the Comedy Store, and I'm like doing this in Denny's parking lot, like hypnotizing
It's like
myself.
rock bottom drug. Like I'm shooting heroin at a stop
shooting
sign.
up speedballs, doing hypnosis in Denny's parking
Yeah.
lot. So I'm doing that, and then I wake up from the hypnosis, and I'm listening to what this guy is saying, and he's like talking about you're in the middle of the woods, and you're meeting a mentor, and the mentor has a black cloak on,
Yeah.
and you're looking into his eyes, and his eyes are solid white, and he puts his hand on your shoulder to do a ritual.
Whoa.
And then I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna do hypnosis anymore.
Right.
And then like I stop, and then the third time that I finally go back to it again,
Okay.
I go back a third time, and I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna make my own hypnosis recordings. I'm just gonna make my own, because it's like, I don't know what somebody's like planting into my subconscious like a seed. I'm just gonna make my own.
Right.
So I go and I get this book, and then I record the hypnosis script, and I fall into a trance. And when I'm in a trance, I'm on a roof, and when I'm on the rooftop, like I have a cord that's
Okay.
attached to me.
So that's like the cord.
It was a cord, and so like there's like a lot of people who have astral projected have said that they see a cord that's attached to them.
Uh-huh.
Like it's like a cord that connects your soul to your soul or your spirit. They're different, I think, but it connects one of those to your body. That
So it's
cord.
not. This is not the same thing
It's
as
like
the
an
other
umbilical cord
as the other
almost.
cord you were talking
No,
about.
no. This is
Okay.
like your life cord or whatever.
Wow. Okay.
And in the Bible, it talks about, in Ecclesiastes, it says at the end of life when the silver cord is cut, which is like, I didn't know this at the time, but I'm like, I don't know what the cord, if it was a rope or it was a cord or whatever, but I knew it represented something.
Right.
And so I'm on the roof and I have this cord attached to me, and I'm like looking over, and this girl comes out, and like she looked like one of the twins in The Shining,
Mm-hmm.
and she had like scissors.
Oh damn.
And she goes, this is the cord that connects you to God. She goes, can I cut it? And then I was like looking at her, and then I'm like, you're in hypnosis, so you're not
Yeah.
fully aware. I'm like, should I let her cut it? Should I not let her cut it? And then I like woke up, and then like after that, I just was like, okay, I'm not gonna do
You're
hypnosis.
getting closer and closer to
Yeah, I'm getting
something.
closer and closer. Like
It's like ironically, your hypnosis seems like it was the worst one.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it was mine was.
Yeah.
And so but I did you got to remember I did it for like 3 years and like I
Yeah.
felt fine.
Well, it's probably you
but it was like
purged so much that like now you're getting whatever like because I've
yeah,
never had
maybe.
any type of hallucination like that. Maybe I've
But
had dreams that
uh-huh.
were kind of like that, but not
Yeah.
like
But that was like when I was like, you know what? I'm just going to like trust God and I'm just only going to do like cognitive behavioral therapy and
mhm.
not do it like all day.
Yeah.
Just like attack my fears
Right.
one by one. And that's what changed my brain anyways, because I always had to go back to hypnosis.
Yeah.
That's what like literally changed the structure of my brain. But like
Mhm.
hypnosis, I think there was like some kind of thing. Am I saying it's bad every time? No, but I feel like you're kind of like, you might be in another dimension, who knows, or you're
Mhm.
open and you're so open you don't know what is like for instance,
You also don't even know what's just
is it
your
wrong to walk down
imagination, you
Hollywood
know.
Boulevard? No. But
Yeah.
should you go to sleep on Hollywood Boulevard?
Mhm.
No. And that's kind of the way I think of hypnosis. You're so open that maybe nothing happens, but like if you do believe that there are things in the spirit realm that don't have your best interest at heart, maybe you're a little more susceptible. That was kind of
Mhm.
what I took away from it. So
I
I
mean
was just
after
kind of
that
like,
like, you
no,
know,
I'm done. I'm done with all this
yeah,
stuff.
that
Yeah.
creepy, kid devil with
Yeah,
the
whatever it was,
scissor story. What are
you
the
know.
pros of hypnosis?
The pros, I
It's
guess.
weird because that was a scary story, but it kind of made me want to do it. I was like, "Oh, I wouldn't mind getting to that level, seeing what is just like you want to be
Yeah, I think a lot of people
in a
because it's
movie
like
adventure, you know."
it's like the Garden of Eden. It's like don't eat from this tree, and it's like now I kind of
Yeah,
want to, you
yeah.
know. But I don't know, man. I think spirits can literally jump into people and they can like destroy your life, your finances. It sounds
Hmm.
very like medieval, but I really
Right.
believe that. And so I
I feel like
think,
that's what the phone is.
I mean, the phone is definitely like corrupting our mind,
100%.
but I
People
don't
are
think
different.
we're
People, you're on the phone enough, it will change your personality from before you were on it six
a
and a half
thousand
hours a
percent,
day.
a thousand
You
percent.
know.
I would say the pros are though is the relaxation. The
Hmm.
relaxation. There is a benefit to knowing how to calm down
For
your
me, the
body.
sleep, it
You
really
know,
just knocked
for
me
you
out,
to
put me to
sleep.
sleep. Yeah.
Um, but the cons would be what I just said, and then like also I think like when
Besides that,
you
because not everybody's gonna have that type of experience, but
no,
let's say like barring, uh, you know, creepy ass experiences like that, what would be the cons? Where it was just,
you have to keep going
I think
back.
like the time,
Yeah, the
the
time that you
time.
spend, and you have to keep going back. Like the reason why I think cognitive behavioral therapy works so well is like okay, it's super simple. There's this thing that I'm slightly nervous about. Like, let's
Mm-hmm.
say I can't even make eye contact with a girl. You wouldn't go up to a girl and ask for her number first. You would practice on just making eye contact and then speaking to your brain after you do it. Until
Mm-hmm.
where now making eye contact doesn't make you nervous anymore.
Right.
Like, if you live your life like that, you change your brain. And that's what worked for me. That's the only thing that changed it. But, like, I feel like if I would have been doing that instead of doing so much hypnosis,
Yeah.
I mean, for me, not everyone's gonna like waste time like I did, but like
Mm-hmm.
I'd say the pros would be the relaxation and you're speaking good things to your mind. There's nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't have to entrust your will over to another human being or put yourself in like kind of like this weird state to where you're between half awake and half asleep and thought. The other thing too is like hypnosis, your subconscious mind, you don't know how it's going to interpret something.
Mm-hmm.
So you could say elephants, you're as strong as an elephant, but your cousin got, or you watched a
Trampled by an
movie,
elephant or
you
something.
watched a
Yeah.
movie of someone getting trampled by an elephant. So now the
Have an
hypnosis is
image
about
of,
being strong as an elephant in your
yeah.
finances. You're going to think of your finances trampled. And now you're like, oh, I got to get rid of my finances. And you start, because that's the way your subconscious mind works.
Right.
So you don't, and the other thing too is like, when you're in that state, you're open to anything that's being said. So somebody outside could be like, yeah, life sucks.
And then that's just
And then
it.
it's
Yeah.
in your brain.
Were there any
So,
hypnosis groups? Like, are there people that like convene and do hypnosis together?
oh, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Okay.
I mean, they have, what's interesting is the college, they have a college for it in LA. And the lead singer of the Thompson Twins, or the
Mhm.
black dude from the Thompson Twins, he's not the lead singer, but that guy I think is a professor there
Oh wow.
because the
Okay.
guy who hypnotized me studied with him,
Okay.
you know.
And did you know
So,
anybody else that did hypnosis, had similar experiences to you, or?
no, I think I barely know anybody. I do know of a few comics who've done it, but I don't know if they want me to say because
Right,
it's
right.
like I think some people are like self-conscious about that stuff, but I do know I have a buddy who did it, and he said when he was doing it, he was like underwater, and it was like his eyes were kind of like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I do know of people, and I know of a really big comic who does it. He's kind of big, actually, but for the most part, man, I'd say just, I would never advise anybody to do it.
You wouldn't advise it.
I would tell, if anybody asked me, should I do hypnosis? I mean, I'm not going to be like a thumper about it and be like, never. But I'm going to be like, dude, I would not do it. I
Interesting.
would strongly. And I was even in an acting class one time in Chicago, and I was talking about how I liked hypnosis. And this girl was like, oh, yeah. She goes, I used to do hypnosis. And I was like, oh, you did? I was like, what'd you think? And she goes, I don't want to talk about it. Something really awful happened to me while I was under hypnosis. She's like, I don't want to talk about it.
I wonder if there's like the opposite. And then be like, I love hypnosis. It really gives me the thing. Like,
I'm sure, dude. I mean, look how many people do it.
Yeah.
But sometimes it almost feels like there's a trade-off. You know what I mean? You fix your smoking, but you break your leg.
Right.
Or like something else breaks.
Something it has to go somewhere.
A trading.
Interesting.
You know what I mean? You siphon it someplace else. It's like the hoses to where you just change the scope.
Do you think hypnotherapy has penetrated like mainstream, kind of like
Freud did it?
Yeah.
Freud did it in Carl Jung, because Carl Jung and Freud were like two totally different like schools of thought. So like Carl Jung, Freud believed like our subconscious memories happen to us. There's nothing we can do about them.
Nothing. Okay.
Nothing. So and then like Carl Jung was like, no, that's not true.
Right.
And Carl Jung believed in the subconscious, but I don't really know what he like taught fully. I have his books, Dreams, Memories, and Reflections or whatever, but I haven't read it. But he was kind of an out there guy. Carl Jung had some really weird ideas that if he would have published, I think, in textbooks, people would be like, dude, what are you talking about? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting. But yeah, I think Freud was kind of just like, is more experimental.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, what is Freud's solution to that? Nothing? Just live with it?
I don't know. I think he's just like, you're screwed, but can I play around with your brain?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's like what it was, Like he was just kind of like a puppet master with people.
Yeah.
I mean, did you ever really, like when you were doing it, because you get obsessive too. Do you go down these obsessive things to where, because if I get into something, at least in the past, I'm not this way so much anymore. I've stepped off the self-help hamster wheel.
Yeah.
But did you ever get in a place where you just got so obsessed with something? You're like, you want to know everything about it, and you're reading,
but
and
this
like,
wasn't one of those things.
Yeah. What is? I mean, we'll probably do an episode on that. But what?
One of those things. I don't know. I guess kind of like.
Was it mushrooms?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you can say mushrooms, LSD. I've done both. Combined like hundreds of times.
Yeah, hundreds.
Yeah. I've been a lot of people.
Wow, at the same time doing that?
No. I don't hippie flip or whatever it's called. Separately, acid I'll only do maybe like once or twice a year. Mushrooms I do a lot less now, but there was a time in my life I was doing it like 3 times a week.
Wow.
For years and years and years. And I'm a lot of people that do it for the first time, they'll do it with me because like I can even be sober with them so they feel safe, and I can like if you're doing mushrooms, you don't really want to do it with someone who's not on mushrooms, but I've done it so many times that I could be there not on mushrooms and like we can still relate. I'll know everything.
Like everything. Yeah. Did you reach a point though to where you're like, I'm pretty good? Yeah,
100% a long time ago. Where it's like where the mushroom is telling me, hey, stop taking me, it's done.
That's
over.
So weird, dude, because like I've talked to other people too, like other friends of mine who, because I don't do them, but like I've talked to friends who've like, my friend Paul, who actually wrote a book about it called, it's called The Psychedelic Christian.
Okay.
I don't know him real well, but he was telling me that like the reason why he stopped was because he did them for 10 years. He said he was pretty much on mushrooms for 10 years.
Yeah.
I think. Like he did a podcast with, you know who Ben Greenfield is?
No.
He did a podcast with Ben Greenfield. So, but I don't want to like tell his story because I'm like probably butchering it a little bit. But like he said that he just had to like almost make himself stop.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that you had that to where you were
Dude,
like
the last time I did it,
you were able to stop.
or even last 2 times I did it,
Uh-huh.
it's like I didn't even trip. It's almost like nothing happened. And it's like, okay, I could feel they're there. Like I feel a bit impaired. I don't want to drive. But it's like whatever that is, like the epiphanies you get, or they're kind of gone. I kind of got it all. Maybe if I stopped doing it for like 6 years and did it again, I would, trip out.
Do you
But
think that are you still like are you still self-helpy though? Like are you still like
yeah, I would say so. I mean,
Yeah.
I've only recently got into it. It was the pandemic that got me really into it because I had the time. So I started meditating more. I would start reading. Like I read The Power of the Subconscious Mind. I was reading about like Neville Goddard, and then I found Law of Attraction. So I did get into it, and I just knew enough people that are kind of into that.
Yeah, I think a lot of comics got into it because it replaced the substances.
Yeah.
Because it's like, but the thing about like self-help, because it's like you just said it, like it helps to an extent.
Well, here's once it
But
gets addictive,
it becomes a black
yeah.
hole because like you're never gonna fix yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and that's like the damaging thing because that's like a deeper thing. That's like a shame thing, I think, to where you're like, I gotta fix something that's wrong with me.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I think that like some people who do so much self-help, they're trying to, at least myself, they're trying to like morph into a ball of light.
Well, it's also
You
kind of
know?
like you're always trying to fix something, and
Yeah.
it's like it's kind of like there's no end to it. And I think a lot of it, like for me, like I don't have children.
Yeah.
I don't have really a full career. So I think a lot of it is like, well, what do you do with this extra energy? You kinda
Yeah, I
put it
work on
into-
myself.
Yeah,
And you're not a mechanic, so you're like, I'll
Yeah.
work on me like a mechanic
So
works
I feel
on a
like
car.
this will, and that's kind of how I look at a
Uh-huh.
lot of things, like
Yeah.
dudes that are my age still trying to get laid it's kind of like, yeah, you should be having a kid now. That energy should be going, like, going to the club at like 43 years old, trying to sleep with
depressing.
women. Yeah, it's like,
You wake up with like a Jim Beam by your bedside table, and you're like, "Oh, women are whores."
yeah,
and it's
yeah.
like, dude, grow up.
So there
You
is
know?
I see why there's a linear blueprint to life because the energy has to go
Yeah.
somewhere else.
Well,
you
I
know?
think too, a lot of people didn't get what they. I mean, here's the thing: it's so hard to say what a kid needs. You know what I mean? Because it's like a lot of people didn't get what they needed
Of
as
course,
a
yeah.
child.
I don't think anybody did.
But yeah, that's the thing. It's like I don't
Part of
think
the human
anybody did.
existence is that you do want more.
Yeah, you didn't
know?
get what you needed. I think that's for me. Like that's kind of why I just settled on like my spirituality. Like, okay, I'm just gonna put my trust in God, and I'm gonna like stop trying to like
Yeah.
hammer the nail inside.
You need
every
to have
single
balance because
And
here's
so-
what I kind of with the mushrooms, right? A big part
Mm-hmm.
of it is it kind of gives you a reset. It breaks the cycle, your thought cycle. You see it kind of disassociates you a little bit, and that's good. But
You
then
were
when you
like
get,
looking at the cycle.
yeah, you're like,
outside
oh,
of the
my
cycle.
mind seems to think like this a lot, and then it breaks you, and you kind of feel good afterwards, even if you have a bad trip. But if you just keep doing it, and all you're doing is breaking the cycle, then you're in a cycle where all you're doing is breaking your cycle. Like you have to have balance.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same thing, like when you're doing hypnosis 4 years every day, an hour and a half. It's like that's not really balanced.
I remember too, man. Like even because like I worked really hard during that time period. Like I worked really. I mean, I've not taken more than probably a week and a half off of doing comedy since I moved to LA, except for going home. Like I've gone home for
Right,
like 2
yeah,
weeks,
yeah.
but like outside of that, like the last 12 years, I don't think more than a week has gone by that I haven't done stand up. And like I've been consistent, but at the same time, there were other things. I was like trying to pamper myself to make the experience like easier.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I remember my friend Lance Allen, he was in the CBS Showcase for Diversity, and a bunch of people were telling me, they're like, dude, you look Middle Eastern. Or they're like, aren't you
Right.
Middle Eastern? And like, it was like black dudes telling me this. And I was like,
Yeah.
I can't like audition because I'm like a straight white guy. And
Yeah.
they're like, but you look Middle Eastern. And then like they were just telling me this, like, because they had like white guys.
There
in the
was,
thing that
yeah,
were
white
like
guys there
1/20th Native
anyway.
American. It was a
Yeah.
joke. But my dad was adopted, and we don't know his whole side of the family. And my dad looks really like ethnic.
Right.
More so when he was younger, he did, because people's sometimes complexion and stuff changes. But they were like, just say you're Middle Eastern. So I went in there, And then like, but he texted me beforehand. He's like, hey, they want to meet you, blah, blah, blah. But when he texted me, he goes, stop doing hypnosis and come to CBS. Like, because he knew what time it was. And he knew that I would be like, he'd be like, stop hypnotizing yourself and come to, and that's like kind of a metaphor for where I was at. Like, stop hypnotizing yourself and live life and realize that there are going to be times that like life punches you in the stomach.
You have to just face it head on.
Brings you to your knees, and there's nothing you can do about it. Like when I got cheated on the first time, I wasn't doing hypnosis at this point, but it's only happened one time, I think. I'm like, it wasn't the 7th time. It was the first time. Yeah. But like, I remember there was no amount of self-help. There was nothing I could do except for pray. Like when that happened, to where I was like, I was trying to do all the stuff, but it was like there was like a hole, like I couldn't eat.
Yeah, you know of course. Yeah, I remember that. My first breakup was like that. I felt like a hole. Yeah, it's really a hole.
It's just really like right here.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I couldn't eat. Yeah. And I remember my friend Jason, is actually Jason Rishi. He was like, come on, man, let's go eat.
I can't,
He took me to go eat, and I like ate like 4 bites of a burger, and I couldn't eat. Yeah. And I would wake up every morning at like 4 or 5 a.m. like I'd had like a shot of espresso. And I would just take off run. Like I couldn't, there was nothing I could do. Yeah. And that's kind of when I realized, like, because I had done so much hypnosis, like it can't cure that pain.
No, not at all.
You know what I mean?
Go through it.
Yeah. So
well, that is hypnotherapy.
Yeah.
And you can find this podcast where?
Self-Help Survivor on Apple, iTunes, Spotify,
Stitcher.
YouTube.
Stitcher, right?
Stitcher, yeah.
Typewriter. I always say typewriter.
Yeah, it's like Bumblebee. Rumble. No, we're not on Rumble. I feel like do you think if a Hollywood exec sees your podcast on Rumble, your career is over?
Probably.
They look for
but
you.
it's just begun in a whole other segment of society.
Yeah, they look for you on Rumble. They're like, yeah, we can't work with this guy.
Yeah. Anyways, that is it. That is all. Thank you guys so much.
All right. Bye-bye.